Welcome to the deep dive. So you've ever been down to Central Texas, specifically Austin? You definitely know the city has this beautiful stretch of water running right through it. Looks just like a river, slow moving right through the city center.
Yeah, it really does look like a river. But when you actually dig into the documents, the maps, the history we pulled together for this deep dive, well, the identity of this waterway Ladybird Lake, it's a lot more complicated. It's not a natural lake at all.
Not even close. It's actually man-made, a reservoir.
Yeah.
And here's the bit that might surprise you. Lady Bird Lake, or Town Lake, which lots of people still call it, was built back in 1960. And its main job, purely industrial. It was the cooling pond for a city power plant.
Pretty unglamorous start.
Right. So our mission today is to really unpack this reservoir's pretty incredible journey, how it went from being basically an industrial tool and frankly called an eyesore to becoming Austin's, main recreational spot, this scenic heart. And we also need to look at the regulations, some surprising ones, and the challenges it still faces today.
Okay, so let's place it on the map first. Ladybird Lake is right in central Austin, Texas. It sits on the Colorado River. Now, it's the very last one, the easternmost lake, in the Texas Highland Lakes chain.
That's the chain with Lake Buchanan, Lake Travis, Lake Austin, all those.
Exactly. But, super important point here, this Colorado River, it starts and ends entirely within Texas. It's completely separate from the big famous Colorado River out in the southwest. You gotta keep those straight.
Good clarification. A very Texas river, then.
Totally Texan.
Wow.
And thinking about its size, that original industrial purpose really shaped it. It's got a surface area of about 416 acres.
Okay.
And it's pretty shallow. Maximum depth is only around 18 feet. So yeah, it's shallow, it's straight, very much a managed piece of water.
All right, let's get into how it was actually made. It starts with the Longhorn Dam, right? Built in 1960.
That's the one.
And that dam created the reservoir specifically, you said, to feed and cool the Holly Street power plant.
Correct. That plant ran from 1960, same year the dam was finished, all the way up until 2007.
Wow, nearly 50 years. So for almost half a century, its number one function was just dealing with industrial heat.
And, it looked the part back then. Before about 1971, the shoreline was, well, it was pretty rough. A local TV station, KTBC, they actually called the lake an eyesore.
An eyesore, really?
Yeah, described the banks as mostly just weeds, messy bushes, and trash. Definitely not the scenic Austin view people expect now.
That is a completely different image. So,
Yeah.
Okay, how did it turn around? This sounds like where some civic vision had to step in.
It did. The sources point to Roberta Crenshaw. She was the chair of the Austin Board of Parks and Recreation back then. She kind of kicked things off.
How so?
Well, she saw the potential there and started the effort by buying almost 400 trees and shrubs herself, just trying to get some parkland development going along the banks.
Okay, so she planted the seed, literally.
Yeah, you could say that. But the real momentum, the big push, came a bit later. Roy Butler was mayor. His term started in 71. The city set up the Town Lake Beautification Committee. And Butler appointed someone as honorary chairman who brought, instant national recognition. Lady Bird Johnson, the former First Lady.
Right, Lady Bird. Her connection to beautification is legendary. And I read she actually donated, $19,000 of her own money?
She did, yeah. $19,000.
It's easy to focus on that donation, But was it really the money that turned the tide on such a big project? Or was it more about her influence, her name recognition?
It was definitely her influence that was the game changer. I mean, yes, the $19,000 was important. It directly paid for planting hundreds of trees and shrubs, which really started the development of the hike and bike trails along the shore.
So it had a direct impact.
It did. But her reputation, her very public long-term commitment to beautifying America, that elevated the whole thing. It went from just a local cleanup job to a core project for the city's identity.
Yeah.
She helps shift everyone's thinking from, utility corridor to public green space.
That's a huge shift in perspective.
Yeah.
And that legacy, it got cemented later on, right? July 26, 2007. The Austin City Council officially renamed the reservoir Lady Bird Lake in her honor.
That's right. And what's interesting is she'd actually turned down the honor while she was still alive.
Really?
Yeah. Which kind of speaks volumes, doesn't it? Suggests her dedication was really about the civic improvement itself, not about getting personal credit for it.
That's quite something. And that spirit seems to live on.
It does. There's a nonprofit, Keep Austin Beautiful. They launched a program called Clean Lady Bird Lake back in 2009. And they get thousands of community volunteers out there every year helping maintain it. It really shows you need that constant community effort to keep a place like this looking good.
So they cleaned up the banks, planted trees, made the shoreline beautiful. But okay, what about the water itself? This kind of leads us to one of the most unique things about Lady Bird Lake, what you can do on it, and maybe more importantly, the one big thing you can't.
Ah, yes, the motorized boat ban. The city of Austin basically prohibits most motorized watercraft on Lady Bird Lake. So no speedboat zipping around, no jet skis.
Which is kind of fascinating when you think about it.
Yeah.
That rule completely shapes how people use the lake.
Totally. It defines its whole recreational character.
It creates this interesting situation, doesn't it? Austin basically said, no thanks to the usual powerboat scene you see on lakes. But in doing that, they accidentally, or maybe intentionally, created this huge advantage. Like the absence of something became its biggest draw.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because there are no big motorboats creating wakes, the water stays incredibly calm. It's glassy. And it's a straight shot, about 6 miles long.
Perfect for certain activities then.
Perfect.
Right.
It makes it this amazing hub for non-motorized stuff. You see paddle boards everywhere, kayaks, canoes, dragon boats. But the really critical thing, rowing, crew teams love it.
Oh, interesting. Because it's so calm and straight.
Yeah, precisely. Austin's warm climate helps too. So you've got the University of Texas women's team training there, obviously. But also big name visiting universities like Wisconsin, Oklahoma. They come down to Austin to train during their winter and spring breaks.
Wow. So that ban directly translates into like sports tourism dollars and athletic prestige for the city.
It's a huge win, yeah. All stemming from that one regulation. And the city really leverages that waterfront. You've also got famous spots right next to it, like Deep Eddy Pool. That's the oldest swimming pool in Texas, apparently.
Oldest in Texas. Wow.
Yep. And Barton Springs Pool, the natural spring-fed pool, which actually flows into Lady Bird Lake.
Okay, so the water activities are unique. And then there's the trail around it. The Ann and Roy Butler hike and bike trail. That's iconic Austin.
Absolutely. It forms a complete loop, 10.1 miles all the way around the lake. It's one of the oldest urban hike and bike paths in Texas and definitely one of the most popular.
10 miles is a good distance.
Yeah.
What's the trail itself like?
Well, it's designed to be really accessible. It's mostly flat. Something like 97.5% of it has less than an 8% grade, so pretty easy going.
Okay.
And the surface varies. Some parts are crushed granite, some are concrete, and then there's a significant section that's a boardwalk. That part was key to finishing the loop.
Ah, the boardwalk section. That wasn't always there, right?
Yeah.
Completing the loop was a big deal.
Huge deal. The full circuit wasn't finished until 2014. It took a public-private partnership to build that final piece, the 1-mile boardwalk at Lady Bird Lake. Cost something like $28 million.
$28 million for 1 mile. Must have been complex construction.
It was, yeah. It goes over parts of the lake where building a normal path on the shore wasn't really feasible. But that boardwalk finally closed the gap, giving people the continuous 10-mile loop they have today.
And when you're on that trail, you can see the history, right? Like nods to the people who helped make it happen.
Definitely. You'll cross the Roberta Crenshaw pedestrian walkway over Barton Creek. And there's the Lunef Point gazebo. Both of those are actually listed as Austin art in public places, direct results of those early beautification efforts.
Okay, but now we kind of have to shift gears. We've talked about the beauty, the recreation, but let's dive into the more complex side of an urban waterway like this. Because for all its success, Lady Bird Lake has some surprising contradictions, especially around safety and its hidden history.
Right. And the first big one we have to talk about is that swimming ban.
Exactly. It's illegal to swim at Lady Bird Lake. You can get fined up to $500. That ban's been in place since 1964.
And this is where a common misconception comes in. A lot of people, locals and visitors alike, they assume the ban is because the water's dirty, from city runoff, pollution.
Yeah, that seems like the logical reason for an urban lake.
Yeah.
But the historical records, they tell a different story, don't they?
They really do. The ban wasn't primarily about water quality back in '64. The actual reasons cited were, safety concerns. There had been past drownings.
Okay. Tragic, but maybe not surprising in any large body of water.
True, but there was another key factor. Debris. Specifically, submerged hazards left over from old bridges and dams that had been destroyed in floods years before. Think rebar, chunks of concrete. Stuff you really wouldn't want to run into while swimming.
So it was more about physical hazards in the water related to old infrastructure than the water quality itself.
That seems to be the primary historical reason for the 1964 ban, yes. Physical safety hazards.
That's a really important distinction. Okay, speaking of what's in the water, let's talk fishing. The lake is stocked, right? Bass, catfish.
Yep, largemouth bass, catfish, carp, sunfish. Fishing is allowed. You need a license. There are limits, the usual regulations. But There's a significant history of chemical contamination we need to touch on.
Okay.
Back in 1990, the city actually issued a ban on eating any fish caught in the lake
A consumption ban. Why?
because they found excessively high levels of chlordane. Chlordane was a really common, potent pesticide. It had only been banned for use in the U.S. 2 years earlier in 1988.
Wow, that's a quick turnaround from a national ban to finding dangerous levels in the lake. That stuff must stick around.
It really does. Chlordane is known for being persistent. It binds very strongly to soil particles. So when it washed into the lake through runoff over the years, it basically settled into the sediment at the bottom
And stayed there.
and stayed there, getting into the food chain. It took almost a whole decade from that 1990 ban until 1999 before the levels dropped enough for the city to feel it was safe to lift the fish consumption ban.
9 years.
Yeah.
That really drives home how long it can take to clean up legacy pollution like that, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Nearly a decade to recover from a chemical ban years prior. That's a serious timeline for environmental remediation.
And unfortunately, the environmental challenges haven't stopped. More recently, there have been issues with algae.
Yes, that's another concern. In August 2019, they found toxic blue-green algae blooms in the lake for the first time. Sadly, reports linked those blooms to the deaths of at least 5 dogs that were exposed to the water.
Oh, that's terrible. A definite modern challenge.
And then, look, we have to acknowledge something else the sources cover, which is difficult but important context for an urban lake like this. It's the tragic reality of body recovery.
The reports mention this.
Yeah. Authorities have recovered at least 38 individuals from the lake's waters just since 2022. That includes a cluster of 4 cases in 2023, another one in February 2024, and one noted for June 2025 in the planning docs. It's a very sobering statistic that highlights ongoing public safety challenges right in the heart of the city.
It really is. And just to sort of close the loop on its industrial past, it wasn't just the power plant there originally, was it?
No, that's right. The city's first water treatment facility, the Thomas C. Green Water Treatment Plant, was built right near downtown back in 1925 to treat Colorado River water. It sat on about 6 acres right there.
And that's gone now, too.
Yep. It was decommissioned in late 2008, just a year after the Holly Street power plant finally shut down.
So within just a couple of years there, both the power plant and the original water treatment plant closed. That really marks a definitive end to that whole industrial utility era for that stretch of the river.
It really does. It solidifies that full transition from, a working waterfront focus on utilities to the recreational and scenic corridor it is today.
Okay, so let's try and synthesize this. What does this journey mean for you, the listener? We started this deep dive looking at a body of water that was, let's be honest, built for a pretty mundane reason. Cooling a power plant.
It's just a big pond for industry.
Exactly. But thanks to some really dedicated civic leaders, people like Lady Bird Johnson, Roy Butler, Roberta Crenshaw, and sustained community effort, it was transformed. It became this amazing 10-mile recreational loop that really defines the Austin skyline now. It even gives the city a unique edge in things like collegiate sports.
It's a powerful story of beautification and civic will, absolutely. But, as our sources make clear, it's not a simple happily ever after. Despite the beauty and the paddling and the running, it's still a heavily managed waterway facing some serious challenges.
Right. We've got that motorized boat ban, which is key to its character, but also a strict regulation. We've seen the threat of toxic algae emerge, and we know about the lingering effects of past pollution like that chlordane, which took nearly a decade to clear from the fish.
And the ongoing public safety concerns that come with any central, accessible urban water feature.
So the history of this reservoir, it really shows that creating and maintaining these urban jewels is, well, it's a constant balancing act. Decades of regulation, remediation, and adaptation.
Which leads us to our final thought for you. The lake story is fundamentally about regulatory response, right? Responding to industrial needs, then to aesthetic desires, then to pollution, then to safety hazards. Think about that milestone lifting the fish consumption ban in 1999.
After 9 years dealing with chlordane.
Exactly. A chemical ban years before, sticking around in the sediment for that long. So here's the question. What does that 9-year struggle to reverse the impact of just one persistent chemical tell us about the kind of long-term commitment and, frankly, the timescale needed to manage and potentially reverse significant environmental damage in our major urban waterways going forward? Something to think about.